Stanley tried to resist her, but Ijoma put her hands on his manhood and said, "I saw how you were looking at me at the bar, and I understood what you wanted. I am here now, so you can take what you want. It's free of charge." Stanley looked at her. The sweet scent of her perfume filled his nose, and before Stanley knew it, he was all over her, taking her right there in the restroom. Ijoma was known for her charm and confidence. She walked with the poise of a queen, and every man who crossed her path couldn't help but notice her. They whispered about her, admiring her grace and elegance. Ijoma was a temptress. She wore bright dresses that hugged her cuffs, painted her lips a deep red, and carried herself with an air of confidence that drew men to her like moths to a flame. She became a mystery that couldn't be resisted, and one by one, the men fell into her trap. Every night, she chose a new victim. She met them in bars, at parties, even on the streets. She would smile, laugh, and flirt until they couldn't resist her. Then, she'd lead them to a hotel where she gave herself to them without a second thought. She didn't care about their names or their stories. Whispers began to spread about the beautiful woman who opened her legs for any man who crossed her path. And soon, men were all over her, calling and booking appointments with her for one-night stands. Some men claimed she was cursed, while others swore she was just a loose woman. Yet, despite the rumors, many still fell under her spell. As the years passed, Ijoma lost count of the men she has been with. Her heart grew colder with each encounter, and the light in her eyes faded. But deep down, a part of her longed for the peace she once knew. She was tired, but she had to make them pay. You see, she wasn't always this way. There was a time when Ijoma was the daughter of her parents' pride, the girl everyone respected for her chastity and good nature. But life had a way of turning beauties into ashes. Everything changed one dark fateful night. It was during a festival celebration in her village Osulo. The streets were alive with music, dancing and laughter. Ijoma had joined her friends in the festivities, her white dress glowing under the lantern's light. She was innocent, full of joy, and completely unaware of the danger lurking in the shadows. The night turned into a nightmare when a group of men dragged her into an alley on her way home. They silenced her screams, their wicked laughter drowning out her cries, and they took advantage of her. When it was over, Ijoma lay broken, her body and spirit shattered. The men vanished into darkness, leaving her to pick up the pieces of a life she would never be the same again. At first, Ijoma tried to move on. She told no one, bearing the deep pain within her. But a month later, her world came crashing down when she went to the clinic for a routine checkup. The doctor looked at her with pity as he handed her the results. "Ijoma," he said gently, "you tested positive for HIV." Her heart stopped. The words echoed in her mind, each syllable cutting deeper than the last. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply walked out of the clinic, her legs trembling beneath her. In the weeks that followed, something inside Ijoma snapped. Anger replaced sorrow, and bitterness consumed her once kind heart. If her life was ruined, she decided, so would the lives of others. She didn't ask for this. She would make men pay for what they had done to her. She vowed to make as many men pay, and she did. So far, she had slept with over 3,000 men. She longed for peace and joy she once knew, but her revenge must go on. One cold evening, at a bar where she was scouting for another man, she met Chijioke, a quiet man with kind eyes and a warm smile. He wasn't like the others. He didn't flirt or boast. Instead, he listened to her stories and made her laugh. For the first time in years, Ijoma felt something different for this man. Soon, they got close and went out often. Ijoma and Chijioke sat under the soft glow of the moon, the sounds of the city a distant hum around them. He had taken her to a quiet spot, far from the noise and chaos of the city. It was the first time in years that she felt a strange sense of peace. She watched him as he spoke about his dreams of traveling, of building a school for orphaned children, and of finding meaning in a world that seemed so cruel. Ijoma smiled faintly, her heart caught between guilt and longing. She had never met a man like Chijioke before, a man who didn't look at her with anger, but with genuine curiosity and warmth. For a fleeting moment, she wondered if she could stop what she was doing, if she could leave her dark path behind and start anew. But a voice inside her head reminded her of her mission. They deserve it, the voice whispered. They all do. She pushed her feelings aside and leaned closer to him, her fingers brushing against his arm. You're different, and so are you, Chijioke replied, his eyes meeting hers. But I don't think you let many people see the real you. The word struck her like a blow. She pulled back slightly, masking her emotions with a forced smile. Maybe you don't know me as well as you think. Chijioke studied her for a moment, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a small carved wooden pendant. This is for you, he said, placing it in her hand. It is a symbol of hope. My mother gave it to me when I was going through a hard time. She said it reminded her that no matter how dark things get, the sun always rises again. Ijoma stared at the pendant, her fingers tracing the intricate patterns. She felt a lump rise in her throat, but she quickly shoved it down. Thank you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. That night, as she lay in bed, Ijoma couldn't stop thinking about Chijioke. For the first time in years, she felt a crack in the walls she had built around her heart. But the darkness inside her was relentless, and it wouldn't let her go so easily. The next time she saw Chijioke, he invited her to visit a small village outside the city. He wanted to show her the community he had been helping, a place where widows and children found shelter and support. Ijoma reluctantly agreed, though she wasn't sure why. Perhaps it was curiosity, or perhaps it was something deeper she didn't want to admit. The village of Amuro was a stark contrast to the city. It was quiet, peaceful, and filled with people who welcomed Ijoma with open arms. She watched as Chijioke interacted with the villagers, his kindness and humility evident in every gesture. The children adored him, clinging to his legs and laughing as he played with them. For the first time in a long while, Ijoma felt a pang of guilt. These were the kind of people she had stopped caring about. The innocent, the good-hearted, the ones who didn't deserve to suffer. She began to question her actions, wondering if she went too far. But the voice in her head returned, louder this time. Don't forget what they did to you. Don't forget why you are doing this. That night, as Chijioke walked her back to her lodging in the village, Ijoma made her move. She leaned in close, her lips brushing against his ear. Stay with me tonight, she whispered. Chijioke hesitated, telling her to get a condom, but Ijoma refused. She kissed him deeper and removed his clothes. We don't need it. I want you, and I want you now, she said and pushed him on the bed. She climbed on him, taking his manhood into her mouth, and Chijioke, who was in love with her, couldn't resist her anymore. As they lay together in the dimly lit room, Ijoma felt a mix of emotions she couldn't explain. She had seduced countless men before, but this time was different. She felt exposed, weak, and afraid. For the first time, she wondered if she was truly ready to face the consequences of her actions. Soon, Ijoma began to feel unwell. At first, she thought it was nothing, a passing fever perhaps. But as the days passed, the symptoms worsened. She grew worried and returned to the clinic after so many years, her heart pounding as the doctors ran his tests. When the results came back, Her world came crashing down. Ijoma, the doctor said, his voice heavy with regret, you are HIV positive. She stared at him in disbelief. That's not possible, she said, her voice trembling. I have been positive for years. The doctor frowned, flipping through her file. No, you haven't. Your previous test was a mistake. It was a false positive. We tried to contact you, but you didn't leave any information about you, and you never came back. The room spun around her as the weight of the revelation sank in. For years, she had believed she was infected. She had gave herself to all those men, and she had used that belief to justify her actions. But now, she realized the truth. She had been healthy all along, until now. And then it hit her. The last man she had been with was Chijioke, the kind, gentle man who had showed her a glimpse of hope, the man she had trusted, and who had now unknowingly passed this burden on to her. Ijoma staggered out of the clinic, her mind racing. She had spent years seeking revenge, only to become a victim of her own choices. For the first time, she felt the full weight of her actions, and the reality of her situation was more than she could bear. The streets of the city seemed colder and emptier that night as Ijoma walked aimlessly, clutching the wooden pendant Chijioke had given her. The symbol of hope now felt like a cruel joke, a reminder of everything she had lost. Ijoma wandered through the streets of Osolo in a haze. The city, once alive and full of chaos, now felt like a vast empty expanse. Her feet led her to the riverbank where she had first sat with Chijioke. She dropped to her knees, clutching the wooden pendants tightly in her fists. The memories of her life swirled around her, each one more painful than the last. The laughter of the men who had destroyed her, the quiet sobs of her lonely nights, and the faces of the countless men she had lured into her web of vengeance. Her heart felt like it was being torn apart by the weight of it all. For hours, she sat there, watching the river flow, until the first light of dawn touched the horizon. As the sun rose, she made a decision. She would face Chijioke. She needed answers, closure, and perhaps redemption. Ijoma found him at the village of Amuro, teaching a group of children beneath a large bamboo tree. He was smiling, his voice full of warmth as he explained a story to the children. The sight made her chest ache. How could someone so good carry such a heavy burden? When their eyes met, Chijioke's smile faded. He dismissed the children and walked towards her. Ijoma, he said softly, his brow furrowed with concern. What's wrong? She took a deep breath, her hands trembling. I need to talk to you. It's important. He led her to a quiet spot near the village well, away from prying eyes. Ijoma struggled to find the words. For years, she had hidden her pain behind a mask of seduction and anger, but now she felt completely exposed. I went to the clinic, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. They told me I was never positive. It was a mistake. Chijioke's eyes widened, and his expression shifted to one of confusion. Ijoma, I don't understand. She clenched her fist, tears streaming down her face. I thought I was infected, Chijioke. I thought my life was over. I wanted to hurt the men who hurt me. In fact, I wanted to hurt all the men. And I slept with so many of them, knowing, thinking I was spreading the disease. Chijioke's face fell, and she saw the heartbreak in his eyes. You didn't know, he said softly, his voice full of pain. But now, she looked away ashamed. Now, I'm positive for real, and I think I got it from you. The silence that followed was deafening. Chijioke's hands trembled as he ran them through his hair. Ijoma, he said, his voice breaking. I didn't want this for you. I didn't want this for anyone. I found out years ago, and I've tried to live a good life, to give back, to find peace with what I can't change. I thought I was careful. That is why I didn't release inside of you. It must have slipped in. Chijioke broke down, sobbing like a child. Ijeoma's chest tightened at his words. She saw the regret in his eyes, the same regret that now consumed her. I didn't come here to blame you, she said. I came here because I don't know what to do. I'm lost, Chijioke. I have been lost for so long. He reached out and took her hand, his grip firm but gentle. Then let's stop being lost together, he said. We can't change the past, but we can choose what we do with the time we have left. Over the next few weeks, Ijeoma stayed in Amuru. She helped Chijioke with the children, taught the women how to sew, and began to find a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. The villagers embraced her, unaware of the secrets she carried, and their kindness began to thaw the ice around her heart. One day, Chijioke took her to a secluded spot in the forest, where a small chapel stood. Inside, the walls were covered with messages of hope, written by people who had come seeking solace. Chijioke handed her a piece of chalk. Write something, he said, something you want to leave behind. Ijeoma stared at the blank space in front of her. For a long moment, she hesitated, unsure of what to say. Then slowly, she began to write, I forgive myself. The words felt foreign at first, but as she stepped back to look at them, she felt a strange sense of release. She turned to Chijioke, who smiled at her, his eyes filled with pride. You are stronger than you think, Ijeoma, he said. Months turned into years, and Ijeoma transformed into the pillar of the community. She and Chijioke started a clinic in Amuru, offering free testing and counseling for those living with HIV. They traveled to nearby villages, educating people about prevention and treatment, hoping to break the stigma that had once kept them in chains. Though the virus remained a part of their lives, it no longer defined them. Together, they built something beautiful out of their pain, a legacy of hope, resilience, and redemption. One evening, as the sun set over the village, Ijeoma and Chijioke stood by the river, watching the water flow. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the wooden pendant he had given her a long time ago. You were right, she said, her voice soft but steady. The sun does rise again. And as the first stars appeared in the sky, Ijeoma finally felt at peace. The moral of this story is that we should never pay evil for evil. We should try to forgive and move on. And even when we cannot move on, we should not try to spread the pain around. Only if Ijeoma had forgiven herself and tried to live a modest life, she wouldn't have been HIV positive today. Another moral lesson of this story is that we can live through everything. We are stronger than we think, and with God on our side, we can face all the difficulties in our lives. Thank you so much for watching. Until we see again next time, remember, do unto others what you want others to do unto you. Thank you, and see you next time. Bye.